Good evening. Welcome to the April 18th meeting of the Stillwater City Council. At this time, I will call the meeting to order, and I'll ask that you all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we've got a couple of proclamations and presentations on the agenda tonight. First up, we'll have a proclamation in recognition of the 25th anniversary of the Payne County Health Department's Children First program. We have a couple of representatives here from the Health Department. Come on up. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation, and if you'd like to say anything in support, we'll let you do that. Yep, right here at the podium. Whereas the City of Stillwater profoundly honors the exemplary service of the Payne County Health Department and the 25th anniversary of the Children's First program. And whereas nurses continuously provide family support services during pregnancy and up to 2 years after a child is born to encourage prenatal care and personal development. And whereas nurses go above and beyond to meet the needs of pregnancy, infant care, stress management, safety and nutrition education, child development assessments, and health monitoring to safeguard the health and safety of the child and mother. And whereas nurses have served thousands of Oklahomans through this voluntary public service program that nurtures a nurse-family partnership encompassed around the importance of health, safety, and child development. And whereas the residents of Stillwater and the surrounding communities are grateful for our nurses and for the Payne County Health Department for their unwavering dedication to provide treatment, health care, and leadership. Now, therefore, I, William Joyce, Mayor of the City of Stillwater, on behalf of the City Council and the residents, do hereby officially recognize April 2022 as Children's First Program Appreciation Month in the City of Stillwater.
Thank you so much, Mayor and council members. We appreciate that.
Right, thank you for being here. All right, next up we have a presentation by the Oklahoma Association of Police Chiefs in recognition of officers from Stillwater Police Department and Oklahoma State University Police Departments, Chief Lewis Flowers and Steve Whitlock.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Steve Whitlock, and I'm the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Association of Chiefs of Police, and we have Lewis Flowers here as the President of the same organization, although Weatherford Police Department as well. And we have awards that we're going to be giving out tonight to some officers. We initially selected these officers during our summer conference last year. COVID's kind of done some odd things to our schedule, but one of the things that we think is very important is to come to the towns and communities to where these officers work and live to recognize them. And we are making the tour, coming to these communities to be able to do this and to just recognize the awesome bunch of people that we have. Not just with the people that we're going to recognize tonight, but just law enforcement in general. Law enforcement's taken a little bit of hit right now, but these people are extremely dedicated to what they do, and I think we should gladly recognize them for that. So that's why we're here tonight. For this time, I'm going to turn it over to President Flowers to read the information. We also have Chief Jones here as well, too, from the greatest university in the state of Oklahoma, Oklahoma State University.
Amen.
For those of you who don't know that, I do get a little frustrated when I have to go to other cities and talk about how great this university is, but some people just have difficulties with that. So, but thank you. I'm not going to mention any names.
The first one will be introducing is Leslie Grother, Oklahoma State University Police Department. On April the 19th, 2021, officers were called to a local parking garage due to an individual straddling the 5th-story wall. Oklahoma State University senior police officer, Leslie Grother, was the first on the scene and was able to build a rapport with the individual and convince him to bring both of his legs to the safe side of the wall. Due to the professionalism and the compassion exhibited during the incident, the OACP is recognizing Senior Police Officer Leslie Grother with a life-saving award. Thank you. Congratulations. Okay. Officer Damian Neiswanger and Patrolman Officer Kurt Merrill, Stillwater Police Department. On March the 15th, Officer Neiswanger and Master Patrol Officer Kurt Merrill was called to the parking garage of a local apartment complex. There they found an individual sitting on the railing preparing to jump. Officer Neiswanger distracted the individual, which allowed Master Patrol Officer Kurt Merrill to move closer. As the individual moved forward to jump, Master Patrol Officer Merrill grabbed them and pulled them back to safety. Because these officers showed great compassion and empathy, the Oklahoma Association of Chief Police is recognizing Officer Damian Neiswanger with a life-saving award and Master Patrol Officer Kurt Merrill with a Medal of Valor. Are they here?
Sorry, we stole one of your guys back in there. Stone Cold, he's a good guy.
Oh, Zach, tell him I said hi. If y'all stand right there, Suck in again. Oh, one more time.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. Chief, thank you. On behalf of the OACP, it is an honor and a privilege to be able to recognize your officers and other officers throughout the state. Thank you again for giving us this time. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Congratulations to the officers you recognized, and thank you so much for being here to recognize them. We appreciate it. Well, that was nice. I'm glad that they go do that and come to our communities and let us know that they're making those awards. That's fantastic. All right, that takes us to item 4 on the agenda, which is the consent docket. Counselors, questions, comments on the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent. Well, I'd like to take off the item E on the consent docket.
All right, we'll remove item E, the approval of the History Museum quarterly report. Any other questions, comments, or a motion on the consent docket?
Motion to approve consent docket with the exception of item E.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket minus item E. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the consent docket is approved. Public comment on items not scheduled for public hearing. I don't think we have anybody signed up on that, so we'll go down to item 6, which is items removed from the consent docket. I said Vice Mayor Darlington because
I'll answer
former
that.
Vice Mayor
That's-
Darlington's sitting in the
I'll
audience.
do that.
Vice Mayor Zanotti.
Yes. Every time the Stillwater History Museum at the Sherrard sends in their quarterly report, I need to do a shout out to them. And I know the council is always very pleased to know that this museum does all that it does with the funding that they do. I just wanted to give a shout out. They just have had over 19,995 grant dollars this year already. They had about an increase since the COVID in visitors coming to their museum. I think people are starting to have an interest in kind of what's happening with our history in our community, and this just proves that they do a really great job.
I also wanted to let you know they did a wonderful recognition in February when we had all the snow for the Mitchell family, Earl and Bernice Mitchell. And this is a wonderful opportunity to recognize a family that has really made an impact on our Stillwater community, and I couldn't imagine a better place to do it than at this museum. So I wanted to say thank you for doing that. I also wanted to do a reminder to us as a council and to the community that since 2007, the city has funded this museum $15,000 annually, and they've continued to do a wonderful job in running this museum on those funds. And I am just always pleased when I think about what they can do as far as grant money. So I shout out to Amelia. They have a couple of brand new board members who are interested. They actually had a National Museum assessment come in and talk to us and talk to their board members as far as what things they are doing in the museum, and they got kudos for that. So just want to do a shout out. When you take the time to do a quarterly report, I think we should take the time to do some recognition.
Absolutely. Thank you. Do you have a motion on the item?
I do. Motion to accept item E on the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item E. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that item is approved. I appreciate you taking that off and making those comments, because you're right, it should be highlighted. And the event for the Mitchell family in February was a fantastic event, and you're right, it was the perfect venue for it. So we appreciate their doing that.
Yep.
Item 7, public hearings. First up, we have a public hearing 7A to determine whether the structure located at 2420 East 12th Avenue is dilapidated as defined in 11 OS 22-112C and abandoned as defined in 11 OS 22-112.4E. This was continued from our January 24th meeting. Ms. Carnley, do you have an update for us?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, this item was continued from the January 24th meeting. Since that time, both the code enforcement officers and attorney Beth Ann Childs have made numerous attempts to contact the property owner in an attempt to move this to resolution without success. However, today, Attorney Beth Ann Childs was able to speak with the owner, Ms. Combs. Ms. Combs is here this evening. I've also had the opportunity to speak with her, and she has advised me that she is working with a realtor or a representative, somebody that's helping her to list the property for sale. Given that, it would be my recommendation if the council agrees to table this item to the May 16th meeting to provide her an opportunity to list the property for sale. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Counselors, is there a motion to that effect?
Motion to table item 7A to the May 16th meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table the item. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that'll be tabled until our May 16th meeting. Thank you for being here. Item 7B is receive public comment regarding a request from Grand Lake Mental Health Services for a specific use permit to allow health care and social assistance on properties addressed as 1060 East Knotts Avenue, also addressed as 899 and 998 East Knotts Avenue, and a portion of 801 East Lakeview in the commercial shopping district for residential in the commercial shopping district and residential 2 and multifamily district. This is CC-22-61. Ms. Carlin, do we have good notice on this?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to present the specific use permit as the Mayor just read from Grand Lake Mental Health Center. This area map shows the purple hatch pattern highlights the area that we're considering tonight for this specific use permit. This sits just at the end and around Knotts Street and to the south of Lakeview and to the east of Perkins. This aerial map gives a better view of the property surrounded in the red line. Again, it sits just to the south of and to the east of the Goodwill Center, to the east of Atwoods, and around the cul-de-sac at the end of Knotts Avenue. This view is a street view of the commercial section that we'll look at in a second, commercially zoned section that sits just to the east of Atwoods along Knotts Avenue. And then further down that same street is a view of the cul-de-sac at the end of Knotts Avenue. As we look to the zoning map, as you can see, the property that has the hatch pattern, it covers mostly RTM, but also to that small section to the west of on the property is CS Commercial Shopping. Our land development code requires an SUP to operate a healthcare and social assistance facility in both of these zoning classifications. As we look to the future land use map of our comprehensive plan to see what we forecast for use in this area, the area selected is under the yellow, the high density residential just to the east, abutting commercial use. Josh Cantwell, their Chief Operating Officer from Grand Lake Mental Health Center, is here tonight, but before we open the public hearing, do you have any questions of staff?
Counselors? Doesn't look like it. Thanks, Brady. This time I will open the public hearing, and I'll ask for Representative Grand Lake to come forward.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilors. Thank you for recognizing me. I'm joined today by Pat Darlington and Lowell Bartow, who are both board members of Grand Lake Mental Health Center. My name is Josh Cantwell. I'm the Chief Operating Officer. Grand Lake Mental Health Center is a certified community behavioral health clinic. We operate in the 12 northeastern and north central most counties in Oklahoma. We have 22 facilities. We've been in operation in Stillwater since 2016. We currently employ around 200 individuals, and we serve on a daily basis 1,600 individuals and families. Since 2019, we've served approximately 16,000 individuals and families. We provide a full array of mental health, substance use disorder treatment, crisis intervention services. We currently have 2 offices, one on Walnut, and we have another office in the Cimarron Plaza. So both offices hold outpatient services, and then the one in Cimarron also has our urgent crisis center. We're paying rent on both of those facilities. Our plan is to build a state-of-the-art facility, approximately 36,000 square feet, to house all of those services under one roof. And that's the location that we just talked about is where we would like to do that. We anticipate that the ability to do those services, and it'll kind of be our flagship building. We want to work with architects in the city to make sure that it meets the architecture that is desirable for Stillwater. And we anticipate the growth will lead to more employment opportunities. It'll lead to more access to services for the individuals of Stillwater. And then the land around there will allow us to build some more and start some more of our innovative services that we'd like to turn into a campus and truly be kind of a hub for mental health, substance use, and crisis intervention services. And I'll take any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you so much. Counselors, questions? So do you all have you don't have a floor plan or anything at this point for the building?
No, we do not. Right now, it really depends on the exact location that as we work with everyone, what's going to be the most desirable, because we could do a single-story dwelling, we could do a 2-story dwelling, and it really depends on what happens with this meeting. And the reason that we're doing this a little out of order, I know how most people do it, is it's a lot of money to spend before we know if we're going to be able to use the facility for what we want to use it for.
What is it about this location that you feel would be good for Grand Lake?
Very easy access. So what would really happen is when we look at the Lakeview and we look at Knott's, we have 2 specific levels of care that we be providing out of there. So we have the outpatient services that would have a different entrance than the crisis services entrance, because we like to kind of keep a low profile, kind of a quiet area where we create an awning and a location for law enforcement to be able to bring people. And so we have 2, so we could ultimately have an entrance off of Knott's and an entrance off of Lakeview that would provide access to different parts of the facility. And just the location, the public transportation availability, and just being kind of centrally located is good for the services that we offer.
Have you had issues at any of your locations here that, in terms of interaction with surrounding?
I asked that specific question right before I came in here because I thought that may come up. We had one person who left our facility remove some items off of the shelf at the dollar store, and that's the worst situation that we've had so far, is that we had to go back over and talk to them, and we assisted in replacing. And it wasn't a violent removal, it was truly removing things off of the shelf.
But that wasn't like right next to your location. I'm just thinking of like interaction with neighbors.
No,
Any
just,
issues that
I
have
think
come
it was
up?
that business that's actually in the Cimarron Plaza with
Oh, it
us is what
oh,
that
yeah,
was.
that's what that is.
hmm
Okay.
It may not be exactly, it's one of those dollar type stores.
Okay. Counselors, other questions?
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you for being in our community, making an impact, and deciding to commit even more. We all know that in every community, mental health and substance abuse is critical, and we have waited for an organization like yours to be present in our community, and so since 2016, you're making a difference, and so we look forward to the continued commitment and the impact you're going to make moving forward.
Thank you for that. We feel like we've been welcomed with open arms
Good.
since that we arrived. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I have one other person signed up to speak in the public hearing, Lindsay Vallister.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm a resident of Benjamin Street, which would be directly east of the facility that's being proposed. I do have some concerns along the lines that you were questioning on just earlier about the safety to neighbors, as well as to the strain that's already on Lakeview and that Perkins Knott's area. It has gotten so busy. I've lived there for 10 years, and the new neighborhoods, the growth, the exciting growth that's happened in our community has really strained that resource. So my chief concerns, and if this project moves forward, that I would love to see a traffic study that could be completed to see what additional adjustments could be made to Lakeview, if there is going to be an access point from there, the safety, as well as if there could be any potential negative effect on property values. Also, I just love the green space. So truth be told, I would love the green space, but I do have real safety, traffic, and property value concerns. So I ask that those be taken into consideration.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone else signed up for the public hearing, but this time I'll close the public hearing and I'll ask Brady to come back up and let us know if the Planning Commission has a recommendation.
Yes, Planning Commission voted on this and recommended approval of 5-0.
Can you tell us, Brady, what the next steps are, assuming that the SUP were to be approved? What else will happen in this process that would allow us to address some of the traffic concerns or screening, other safety concerns?
Yep. So it's a great question. So once, if the SUP is approved, they've stated that they would purchase the property, and then everything from there would be administrative, as far as it would have to meet code. So there would be screening requirements. It would have to meet all of our standards. The traffic impact analysis that she mentioned, this project wouldn't trigger, per our standards, a traffic impact analysis, but we would look at that, our engineering staff would look at that, evaluate it, and make sure that, the requirements, the entrances from Knott's and the exit or entrance from Lakeview would accommodate that. But all of those exciting residential neighborhoods that have been built or are being constructed on Lakeview, those all had to go through traffic impact analysis. The other comment that came up at Planning Commission on that traffic note is that this is, as you saw with our future land use map, was high density residential. We feel as a staff that this would be less impact than a large apartment complex in that area.
Counselors, questions or comments? What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to accept Planning Commission recommendation and approve the specific use permit for the property located at 1060 East Knott's Avenue, aka 899 and 998 East Knott's Avenue, and 801 East Lakeview Road.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this specific use permit. Please vote. Well, with a vote of 4-0, that is approved. We look forward to hearing more from you all about your plans with the property. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to item 8, general orders. 8A is consider adjustments to the OK MRF vesting plan for general employees, approval of related joinder agreement, and adoption of an amended OK MRF master plan. Melissa Reams.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I'm going to give you a little background of what we're going to be reviewing again this evening because we've talked about this at several council meetings. So on February the 28th in our planning session, planning session, we talked about recruitment and retention of employees. And one of the specifics discussed was an amendment to the Omrf vesting schedule for general employees. It ran the gambit from vesting immediately to potentially lowering it to 5 years or 7 years. We came back at the study session on March 28th and again reviewed with you what those changes might look like. And I'm stumbling because I'm trying to figure out how to close out Brady's presentation so I can, here we go, I got it, get to what I need to get to without keeping us too long here. So we talked about some of the different vesting schedules that we might look at. Let me get to those real quick. There we go. Kevin, can you pull that up on the screen? We talked about 3 years, and you could either do a cliff vesting schedule or a graduated vesting schedule. Same with 4 and 5. And then once we got much higher than that, 6 and 7, there would be a little deferment there. And then, of course, I gave you our current 10-year vesting schedule as reference. During that meeting, you asked that I visit with Voya and get a transition plan to these vesting schedules, depending on which one that was selected. Voya needed 90 days of notice, which that notice was provided to them by Omrf on April the 4th in anticipation of this meeting. And Voya has confirmed to the Omrf staff, who has confirmed to your own staff, that that notice was received in time to make any adjustment to the vesting schedule that we might need. So this evening, we're going to conduct 2 pieces of business where this is concerned. We're going to ask that you select a vesting schedule so that we can have Voya make those changes and have that be effective July 1st for our staff. And then we also are going to adopt the amended defined contribution plan. We go through a 6-year cycle with the IRS. They come through and look at our plan, make sure that any new laws that or amendments to the law is included in the plan. They go through and look for uniformity in language, and we have to adopt that amended plan. So it's kind of a 2-pronged thing, but we wanted to handle the vesting schedule and get that incorporated into the totality of what we were doing for general employees. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Counselors, what questions do you have? None at all?
Well, did I understand all the joinder agreements that were in here, are they just different based on the vesting?
They
which
are.
option we selected?
So if you go through that joint agreement, the things that I was looking for was the employee contribution remains at 3%. The employer match or contribution remains at 6%. The only differences there were the vesting schedules.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, we just need to pick a vesting schedule.
Yes.
I think our last discussion was around the 5-year,
Yeah.
20% a year
Yeah.
Mhm.
schedule. I think that was kind of where we ended this conversation last time around. So, I mean, it sounds like we can get all that accomplished. It won't be a problem to make the change.
No,
And
not at all. And again, know that you can come in and make changes to the vesting schedule as you choose to. I wouldn't recommend doing this every 90 days, but, maybe we have a review annually. I think that's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And we look and make sure that The vesting schedule is current with the social climate that we're in, and that it's achieving the goal that we set out for ourselves, which is retention and recruitment.
Right.
Well, that, yeah, I mean, that's the point.
That's the point.
Right? I mean, we're
Absolutely.
trying
Yeah.
to improve recruiting and retention. So if we do an annual review of this, which we should, it should specifically refer to changes or effects that this may have had on retention and
Right.
recruitment. And it's part of, I don't remember the specific questions in the employee survey that we've just done about vesting and whether that is specifically asked about, but it should be in the follow-ups that we do to see if this
Absolutely.
makes a difference.
And as we work through this, we'll try and develop some key performance indicators that might capture for everyone these changes as we move through.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to see if it changes how much contributions people make. I mean, they may be more willing to contribute more if they
Well,
feel
and
like
this
they're
is kind of, part two will come next year during budget, incorporating what Counselor Hawkins suggested to us, that not only do we have a graduated vesting schedule, a shorter one, but then we start rewarding that longevity with an increased maybe contribution on the employer side.
Yep.
So that would be part two that I'll plan to bring back next year at budget time for you.
So we've got a recommended motion on this item, or no?
Well, the recommended motion would be that we decide on a vesting schedule. If you're asking my personal recommendation, I like 5 years. It's kind of halfway in between, knowing that we are testing the waters somewhat and we're going incrementally. I think if you go so far down, you can't, once you're down there, you can't get back.
Right.
I think it would be very detrimental to employee morale and goodwill.
Yeah.
So I think 5 is reasonable.
And I think that we should also point out that with the 5 years, they are getting 20% per year as their vesting versus the current model.
Right,
So
where
they
they
are
don't-
seeing
They are seeing it.
immediately a portion of their vesting.
Absolutely,
So-
absolutely.
So the ordinances that we have on the agenda later in the evening that authorize the change in vesting,
Correct.
do we need to put specific numbers in those? Are they already in those draft ordinances?
So the draft ordinances are, Melissa spoke to the 6-year review, and so those ordinances are to adopt the amended and restated master plan that addresses the new tax review,
Okay.
but it does reference as an attachment to the ordinance the joinder that you select under this item of business.
Yes.
All right. Further questions? Do we have a motion I guess we need a motion to select a vesting schedule?
That would be great.
I'm just winging it here. Is there a motion to that effect?
I move to accept a 5-year vesting schedule at 20% vesting per year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt a 5-year, 20% per year vesting schedule. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that is adopted. So do we need a motion on the agreements?
Yeah, I was going to clarify with Ms. Reams, the adoption of the amended Omrf master plan. Are we doing that by ordinance or?
I think that's adopted by ordinance.
Okay,
yes.
that's my understanding as well.
Yes.
So I think that it's sufficient to adopt the joinder agreement for the 5-year as you have, and there's no additional
Right.
action that's needed until we get to the
To
ordinance.
the ordinance.
Excellent.
So
So that takes care of 8A.
8A,
Okay. So we'll
So-
move to 8B.
8B.
Go ahead, Melissa.
So under this broad umbrella that we call defined contribution, we have 2 different types of plans. We have the general employee plan, which we just discussed, and thank you so much for being our partner in recruitment and retention. We appreciate that. Secondly, there's a separate plan for city managers, town administrators, people of that job classification. And so this evening, I also need you to adopt by ordinance, and you'll see that ordinance later, This plan, there are no changes to this plan, so it remains the same, but we need to have that official action on both pieces.
The official action being the ordinances?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is more information for you or to answer any questions.
So is the city manager's plan a different vesting schedule?
It is. So with city managers, they have a tendency to move around somewhat quickly. Not here in Stillwater. We've been very fortunate to have long histories with our city managers. Mr. McNichol's predecessor was here for 10 years. Now, it gets a little fuzzy for me because I wasn't here then. I think there was one city manager that maybe stayed 3 or 4 years and moved on, but then his predecessor was here for a very long time. So that was the equalizer that was developed so that every time these individuals moved, they did not lose their ability to garner service. If you have a 10-year vesting schedule and you're only there for 3 years, you get nothing. And so that was the accommodation that has been long-standing with this plan, or with this particular branch of the overall
Sure.
plan.
Okay. So we don't need any action on item 8B.
No, just when you read the
when we get to the
ordinance for the
I got it.
first time. Yeah.
Any further questions on any of this, counselors? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Melissa.
you.
That takes us to item 8C, which is to approve a legal services agreement to retain Don Kaiser to provide legal services as bond counsel in connection with the issuance of general obligation bonds by the city of Stillwater. Ms. Carnley.
This is a legal services agreement to retain Don Kaiser to serve as bond counsel for the issuance of the GO bonds for the new fire station that was recently approved by the voters. Bond counsel serves in a specialized role. He's an attorney that's qualified and experienced in public finance transactions, and among other things, will draft many of the documents utilized in the bond issue and render an opinion to the validity and enforceability of the obligations issued. Unlike other outside counsel that usually bills the city based on an hourly rate for the work performed, bond counsel is unique in that they're only paid on a contingency basis after a successful election and the actual sale and issuance of bonds. Mr. Kaiser's been integral to the fire station bond issue that we now have the voter approval on, and so now the work begins, and so as such I recommend approval of his agreement.
Counselors?
Motion to approve staff recommendation to retain Don Kaiser to provide legal services as bond counsel in connection to the issuance of general obligation bonds by the city of Stillwater.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agreement. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the legal services agreement is approved. We are looking forward to getting those bonds out there and getting that fire station built. Takes us to item 8D, approve budget amendments totaling $1.5 million to reduce budgeted operating expenditures in fiscal year 2022. And I will let Melissa Reams explain those budget amendments.
So at the March 28th study session, Christy Clark, our finance director, informed the council that we had identified a gap, if you will, in the budget of $1.5 million. We had asked our staff, our department directors, to look at their budget and identify budget dollars that they did not anticipate deploying in the current fiscal year. If those budget dollars could be through budget amendments, if that could be relieved from the budget, that created fund balance back over in the SUA, because then we didn't need to transfer that many dollars. So in doing that, that in essence freed up money for potential future use. And that was the goal. It was never to take funding away, because I have heard lots of comments, but it was never, ever to take funding away from legitimate need, because we do need to get through the end of the year. But it was to identify what I call surplus funding or positive expenditure variance. So with that said, we need to take, you're laughing,
I like that term, positive expenditure variance. That is an accountant term if I've ever heard one.
It is. Sorry, I digress here. But so in order to really totally free up that money, we need to do it through a budget amendment. And that's what you're seeing this evening. You're going to see part of it on the city council agenda, and you're also going to see part of it over in the SUA. Ms. Cluck has provided a detailed listing of where those amounts came from, and each one of these departments was given a target to hit. It was basically, your budget is so big, so here's a percentage for you to shoot for. And down the line, I think our department heads did a really good job, don't you, Mr. McNichol? I was proud of them. They may not have totally understood why, but they did what we asked them to do. And so this evening, we are asking you to approve the budget amendments that in essence will reduce their expenditure budgets in this year's budget and reduce the transfer to the SUA, thereby freeing up money for next year, for us to deploy next year. And a lot of this is why when we get to December, we would come to you and say, oh, we have $2 million surplus variance. Well, it's because we had amounts that never got deployed. And so we're trying, this is a really great fiscal process for us to try and make sure that the current year taxpayers get the benefit of the current year tax dollars. So our motion is to ask you please to approve the associated budget amendments.
Thank you, Melissa. Counselors, any questions? I mean, it makes a lot of sense to say this is money that wasn't going to be spent in this year's budget, so let's move it back out and have it ready for next year.
We do that when we go in and we analyze salaries.
Yeah.
We budget for positions 18 months in advance. When you think about where we are right now in our budget cycle for fiscal year 23, we're a good 12 months at least, if not 18 more. And so life changes. You know, budgets are meant to be flexible, but you have to work them. And if you're not constantly saying, oh, things change, we're not going to use those dollars, so we need to relieve that budget, that's when we get these large variances. And I think this is a much better, cleaner approach. Easier to understand. You do that in your own personal budget.
If there was ever a positive expenditure variance or whatever it was you called it.
No,
Not sure that happens much in my budget.
Although the example I did use at the library board, Chris had to get new tires for his big truck, and they were very expensive, and somehow, because usually this doesn't happen for him, he got them cheaper than what he told me. So I was all set to go buy a new purse, but we thought better of that, and we put that money back in savings. It's very, I mean, you can boil it down.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
again, back to our recommendation, we're asking you to approve the budget amendments.
Counselors, is there a motion on the recommendation?
Motion to approve budget amendments as detailed in the financial impact funding source section of this report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve these budget amendments. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, those are approved. Thank you,
Thank you
Melissa.
so much.
Takes us to item 9 on the agenda, resolutions. Resolution under section A is related to the item that we tabled until our May meeting, so we'll skip item A.
Mayor, if we could actually
Oh.
make a motion to table this to that date
Okay.
certain as well, so we sync them up.
Yep.
Much appreciated.
So we won't skip it, and we'll take a motion to table it into the May 16th meeting.
Motion to table resolution number CC-2021-38.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table the resolution to May 16. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that resolution is tabled. Item 9B is Resolution CC 2022-9, a resolution amending the City of Stillwater commercial cardboard collection rate structure and terms and conditions of collections. Mr. Chris Knight.
Chris Knight, Waste Management Director. The resolution that's before you is to institute a new cardboard collection fee structure. The fee structure for this one is a little bit different than the old one. As I stated in earlier meetings, that there will be less container sizes on the new the new cardboard fee structure. The difference between the pricing of the old fee structure and the new fee structure, on the 20 cubic yard open top, the old fee structure was $100 a month for that container. The fee structure for the new will be $195. The 30 cubic yard open top container was $150. It's going to be $225 a month for the new structure. The fee structures, new gen strategies, and solution helped me determine what the fee structure should be. They did our rate study. It's been 3 years now. So they helped me determine those prices. And another reason we chose just these two sizes is because if we didn't have cardboard customers, we could put them into our rental fleet and rent them out.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
Counselors?
I just wanted to say thank you, Chris. I know we've had a long conversation about this, and you've kind of hung in there with us. So thank you for going back to our consultants to kind of take a look at that more strategically, and all the work I know that you had to do to get us to this point. We appreciate it.
No problem. We made it. I have a motion, if you're ready.
We'd love to hear it.
Motion to adopt resolution CC-2022-9, SUA 2022-4, amending the commercial cardboard collection rate structure.
All right, well, we'll take a motion on the resolution, the city council resolution for now, and then we'll come back to the SUA one.
Yeah.
Counselors, is there a motion?
Motion to adopt resolution number CC-2022-9.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that resolution is adopted. Thank you, Chris. Item 9C, Resolution CC-2022-10, a resolution reestablishing the annual rate increase to the water and wastewater rate structure and for the Stillwater Utility Authority and the electric rate structures for the Stillwater Electric Utility, providing for subsequent annual rate increases, CC-22-62. Mr. McClenny.
Good evening, John McClenny, Special Projects. Thought as you consider this resolution that we would go back through some of the history of the rate discussions over the past few years, since it's been a while since we looked at this. On March 2nd of 2020, you received a presentation from Avant Energy, who did the rate study for water, wastewater, and electric. Some of the study objectives at that time were to move rates toward cost of service, to limit rate increases to the extent possible, and to have rates that keep each utility financially stable. Avant's methodology was to determine the revenue needed to operate the utility, to determine the cost to serve each customer, and some of the other considerations were to compare to peer utilities in other cities, to make sure that we're fair to various customer classes, and the reception of people to the rate increases at that time. The rate design was then completed, and the electric recommendation was to increase customer demand charges and decrease energy use charges. The water wastewater recommendation was a 3% rate increase with reduced capital expenditures, which would have been $1.8 million less than was planned. At the time of the study, I will note that water rates were 19% below the revenue needed based on the rate study. Staff did a presentation in October of 2020, and we reviewed the rate recommendations for each service, and then we showed the impact of those recommendations on individual customers by reviewing the individual customer bills, actual monthly billing. And then we showed the combined impact of all the rate changes on the customer's monthly bill. We utilized actual customer data, and all of that is still out for review. If anybody would like to look at it, we can bring that back at any time. Or post it on the website if someone would like to see it again. The late summer billing was what was used because that's July and August, which is the worst case scenario, and we wanted to use the worst case scenario on the rates. And then we did a year-to-year comparison for a single month. We brought back resolutions for consideration in December of 2020, and we brought back responses to the council's questions from October 26th. The waste management rates were adopted because of the need to move those immediately due to some of the recycling issues that we were dealing with. And the electric, water, and wastewater rates were deferred. This was Not specifically stated, but we were right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. We weren't sure what was going to happen with the economy. We were actually looking at programs to help people pay their utility bills. The timing just really wasn't good for considering those rate increases at that time. Since December 7th of 2020, the distributed generation rates have been created and implemented. We have looked at the Oklahoma State University sewer flow data as a potential project. That's something that came up in the discussions. And while that's a good idea, given the current staffing levels and some major water issues that you're all aware of, it's a good idea. The timing just isn't right on that right now. You're aware of water, wastewater capital expenditure needs that have changed dramatically, at least as far as what we knew when we did the rate study. And then the rural water rate study is currently underway, and we expect a report towards the end of May on that, and that should be presented to the council in the near future. Our current situation is that the electric escalator was suspended, the automatic escalator was suspended in October of 2018. The wastewater escalator was suspended in April of 2019. The Avant rate recommendations are outdated at this point. We would be currently in year 3 of what was a 5-year plan, heading very soon into year 4. And then per the recent budget presentation, revenue projections are not keeping up with budget projections. The cumulative CPI increase since the last rate adjustment is 15.7%. And rate increases are needed in all utilities to balance the budget and maintain infrastructure going forward. I'm going to show you 3 scenarios, just like we did in October, for customer impact. And let me pull this slide show up here. These scenarios are a 3% increase, which is the current cap in the suspended resolution and the minimum needed to offset the negative growth in revenue. And then another one is a 5.1% increase, and this was the inflation rate in 2021. And then the third would be the 15.7% cumulative inflation rate since the last utility rate adjustment. And again, these are based on the July-August billing. These are actual customers in our system, and it's important to remember that these are just examples because this is a specific customer, and any individual customer's situation may be different, so their change would be slightly different. So our residential customer impact is based on the same customer that you saw in October. It's a family of 4, no pool or irrigation, 2,300 square foot house, and the July-August billing cycle. You can see their current bill under those conditions is $302.66. So a 3% increase would be a $9.08 increase on that July-August billing. A 5.1% would be $15.44, and the 15.7 would be $47.52. Moving to the small commercial customer, this is a small retail showroom, 3,500 square foot facility, irrigated landscape, a 1-inch water meter, and again the July-August billing cycle. Current bill is $1,553.79. A 3% increase would result in $46.61 increase on their bill. 5.1 would be $79.24, and then a 15.7 would be $243.95. The large commercial customer is a big box retail, 60,000 square foot facility, irrigated landscape, 2-inch water meter, and again the July-August billing cycle. Their current bill is $5,722.05, and a 3% increase would result in $171.66. 5.1, $291.82, and then 15.7 would be $898.36. And then finally, our large industrial customer, 350,000 square foot manufacturing facility. They have a 2-inch and a 6-inch water meter. Current is $147,188. The 3% would result in a $4,416 increase. 5.1 would be $7,507 increase, and the 15.7 would be a $23,109 increase. When we do have a recommendation, open it up for questions. I have lots of help here to answer questions.
Counselors?
Kind of a little bit of a detailed question that's in the resolution. I noticed that the waste and water rates, you said they effective July 1st, 2022, and then July 1st of every year after that for the rate escalation. For the electric, it's July 1st, 2022, and then January 1st. Was there a reason why we went with January 1st on the electric?
That was based on the original resolutions for the escalator. Electric was set for January.
Okay.
And
Is it, my other question on that, just because I use the Bureau of Labor Statistics for some other things, are they readily available by January 1st to apply to a bill from the prior year?
I don't know the answer
My
to that.
experience with some of that is that there's a lag in when they're available. So I just wondered if there would be any issue with applying that formula to
I would
January bills.
assume that since we had it set that way in the past, that we had something available that we could use.
Okay, thank you.
But we don't know why it was set at January instead of?
I asked that question as well. In the original resolution that authorized this automatic rate increase, it was effective January 1st and then reviewed January 1st of each year thereafter. Because of the somewhat immediate need to take action to reestablish that rate increase, I made them each effective July 1st with the new fiscal year. But then the reason why I kept the review on the January 1st is because and I asked this question and didn't really, I don't know if we ever got a clear answer on it, but my concern was that it would either affect billing cycle or that perhaps we're on a January calendar because of GRDA. I did not receive an answer on that. However, if we were to reestablish the annual rate increase tonight, effective July 1, we could always come back and modify that review. But I did point that out as I circulated this resolution that, hey, we've reestablished this July 1, and electric will have a look at it January 1st already.
And from my recollection, the reason that this was split like it was so that you didn't have both bills being increased at the same time.
Yep.
And our utility billing director is here, Dana Maddox. She can speak to the CPI adjustment as well. Dana?
We're putting you on the spot.
My question was simply whether the Bureau of Labor Statistics had that CPI available immediately at the 1st of January, or if there was a lag. My experience with those things is that
I think we usually see it in February.
Okay, so it wouldn't necessarily be applied to January bills.
Right.
Okay.
So what we've done in the past is because we read the meters at different times each week, depending on where you live in the city. So we have 4 billing cycles. The rate increase was always went into effect on the first bill that was for the entire month of January. So some people would get a bill from January the 15th to February the 15th. It wouldn't be until we were out of that January month. So it's usually like in February. So it is delayed a little bit because we don't prorate, so we want them that rate increase not to hit them until they have hit that reading period and used all of that months, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And
Thank
then-
you very much.
Did we split them into July and January just so that we didn't have both types of utilities hit at the same time?
That was one of the consideration is there wasn't such a big hit.
Yeah.
So they got electric, and then 6 months later was the water.
Absolutely, that makes sense.
And it's easy to do that either way.
Thank you.
John, is the intention, so the intention would be to reactivate the rate escalators?
Correct.
And there was a schedule, right, for that? It wasn't, as I recall, was it consistent, like 3% every year for 5 years, or did it have kind of a variance in
It's the 3% or the CPI, whichever is lower.
But it was across.
That's in when the trustees don't take action to do a rate increase. So if you were to increase the rates, then the annual increase is not applicable.
I was just trying to remember back to some of the presentations,
Yeah.
how they had laid it out for us.
So the resolution before us at this point is to reestablish the automatic escalator at a rate of
Well, the resolution at this point is for 3%,
3%.
which is the
Is that
minimum
staff's
needed to.
recommendation?
Yes.
Why is that staff's recommendation instead of the 5.1 or the 15?
Well, 5.1 and 15 seem to be a little bit much
Bigger?
from our perspective, and we wanted to recommend the minimum necessary to get the budget straight and not go further than that.
Well, so what's the, assuming, well, what's the plan on the actual rate schedule and adoption of the new rate schedule that we've been deferring for a year and a half now?
Well, on the adoption of the Avant rate schedule, we don't recommend adopting that. We're going to need to relook at that, and that's actually part of what we recommend tonight, is that we reevaluate rates in 6 months, and that may be another rate study, but we've also talked about potentially having just some consulting help and having staff take a look at this.
I think with COVID, right, with so many communities not being able, I mean, right, it was the right thing to do
Right.
to suspend these things. But I think a lot of people that were doing rate, unfortunately for us, a lot of people that were doing rate studies at that time, this really just kind of threw everything out the window, right? We didn't enact these escalators. We were, like John mentioned, trying to help our
Yeah.
utility customers pay their bills.
It was a tough time to take a look at something like this when no one knew what the economy was going to do.
But it does kind of leave us with a couple of years where we didn't,
didn't
right? I
do
mean, the whole point of the rate studies was to understand what the cost of services for these utility services was. We determined the cost of service, and we determined rates based on the cost of service, and a rate escalation that covered those cost of services, and now we have 2 years where we didn't have that escalator. So I think hopefully that gave us a really good base to jump off from in terms of looking at rate studies again, but seems like it'd be hard to take one that was done 2 years ago, given what
Sure.
we've just been through.
Yep.
Mr. McNichol?
And I agree with that completely. And that's the reason we reached this recommendation. But we do need another rate study because it's imperative to our ongoing operations. So, and we're happy to take a look at doing that ourselves rather than with some help from a very handy person that we know.
So not necessarily a full-scale rate study, but an update based on the work we've done
Right.
to this point.
Right.
Because I mean, to me, when we talked about that rate study, the way the rates were being restructured in terms of shifting more to the fixed costs and less to the whatever the terminology was on the variable costs. I mean, that's made sense. So if we just update kind of what those costs are, then it would make sense that we could do that without having to run the whole thing. Right?
Right, and especially in electric, it was rebalancing between the customer classes to make sure that each class covered their cost of service without subsidizing another one.
Yep.
Well, and I think if you consider the fact that 2.5 years ago we were 19% below cost of service on water, and we will take into consideration that you can't get that back all in one fell swoop. So,
Okay, so John, what's the recommendation on CC 22-10?
We recommend that you adopt that resolution and that we reevaluate rates within the next 6 months.
Thank you, sir. Counselors, is there further discussion, or is there a motion on that item?
Motion to adopt resolution CC-2022-10.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, CC-20-10, resolution CC-2022-10 is adopted. Mr. McClenny, before you go, I would make a request on your bar charts next time that the y-axis start at 0.
Okay.
Christy wanted that to happen too.
I did.
I will take that into consideration.
I work at a place that does data visualization, and that's one of those things that we get really crazy about. Anyway, item 9D, Resolution CC-2022-11, a resolution fixing the amounts of bonds to mature each year, fixing the time and place bonds are to be sold, and authorizing the clerk to give notice of said sale as required by law. Melissa?
I'll be happy to take
Oh.
this one. I said they put your name on it. So we have here tonight our financial advisors as well as our bond counsel to answer any questions you may have. Or in case I'm not doing a good enough job introducing this resolution, but it's my understanding this is the first step in the procedural. This is more of a procedural step. This is authorizing the issuance of bonds and authorizing the city clerk to give notice of said sale of those bonds as required by law. So we're asking that you approve the resolution tonight.
It's been 22 years since we did this, so we appreciate bond counsel's help in making sure we're getting these out there correctly. But yeah, this resolution seems pretty basic in terms of authorizing the issuance of these bonds. Counselors, any questions? Is there a motion on the resolution?
Motion to adopt resolution CC-2022-11.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. The vote of 4-0, resolution CC-2022-11 is adopted. All right, that takes us to item 10, ordinances. This is the fun part. A glass of water for this. Just so we're clear, I have to read this full title of this ordinance
By
every
title,
time we do
yeah.
these readings, right? Okay. On first read, we have ordinance 3492. This is the Omrf ordinance that we talked about earlier. It is an ordinance amending the employee retirement system defined contribution plan for the city of Stillwater, Oklahoma, by adopting a revised and restated retirement plan, providing retirement benefits for eligible employees of the city of Stillwater, Oklahoma, providing for purpose and organization, providing for definitions, providing for eligibility and participation, providing for non-alienation of benefits, providing for employer and employee contributions, providing for accounting, allocation, and valuation, providing benefits, providing for required notice, providing for amendments and termination, providing for transfer to and from other plans, creating a retirement committee and providing for powers, duties, and rights of retirement committee, providing for payment of certain obligations, providing for duration and payment of expenses, providing for effective date, providing for vesting schedules, providing for a fund to finance the system to be pooled with other incorporated cities, towns, and their agencies and instrumentalities for purposes of administration, management, and investment as part of the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund, providing for payment of all contributions under the system to the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund for management and investment, providing for repealer and severability, and adopting those amendments mandated by the Internal Revenue Code.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a motion on the ordinance?
Motion to adopt ordinance number 3492.
I think we got to read it again.
Really? Motion to advance the second reading.
actually get to.
Man, I tried.
I know. I appreciate you trying to skip
I
that
did.
stuff.
Yeah.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance ordinance 3492 to second read. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the ordinance is advanced. Ordinance 3493 is item 10B, an ordinance amending the employee retirement system defined contribution plan for the city of Stillwater, Oklahoma by adopting a revised and restated retirement plan, providing retirement benefits for eligible employees of the city of Stillwater, Oklahoma, providing for purpose and organization, providing for definitions, providing for eligibility and participation, providing for non-alienation of benefits, providing for employer and employee contributions, providing for accounting, allocation and valuation, providing benefits, providing for required notice, providing for amendments and termination, providing for transfer to and from other plans, creating a retirement committee and providing for powers, duties, and rights of retirement committee, providing for payment of certain obligations, providing for duration and payment of expenses, providing for effective date, providing for vesting schedules, providing for a fund to finance the system to be pooled with other incorporated cities, towns, and their agencies and instrumentalities for purpose of administration and management and investment as part of the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund, providing for payment of all contributions under the system to the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund for management and investment, providing for repeal or inseverability, and adopting those amendments mandated by the Internal Revenue Code.
I'd like to provide some clarification. The titles are the same. One ordinance
Oh, I
is for
noticed.
general employees. One ordinance is for city manager plan. What's different with the two ordinances is the exhibits.
I'm very happy that you clarified that because I just read the same thing twice. And is there a motion on ordinance 3493?
Motion to advance ordinance number 3493 to second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance the ordinance. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, ordinance 3493 is advanced to second reading. On second reading, we have ordinance 3491, which is an ordinance rezoning tracts of land located at 721 South Stanley Street from office to public, and 1202, 1218, 1302, and 1318 West 8th Avenue, 705, 711, 717, and 720 South Blakely Street, and 706, 710, 714, and 718 South Adams Street from small lot single-family residential to public. Councilors.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 3491.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on ordinance 34 to adopt ordinance number 3491. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the ordinance is adopted. Next up, reports from officers and boards. Ms. Carnley.
Yes, I have 3 items this evening. 1, a request for an executive session pursuant to 25 OS Section 307B3 for the purpose of confidential communication regarding the purchase or appraisal of real property. 2, request for executive session pursuant to 25 OS 307B2 to discuss labor negotiations with the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge Number 102. And 3rd, a request for an executive session pursuant to 25 OS 307B2 to discuss labor negotiations with the International Association of Firefighters Local Number 2095.
Thank you, Ms. Carnley. Mr. McNichol.
Yes, sir. We need some citizens to get involved, and we're asking for people to consider applying for the following positions, and a couple of them have qualifications. So there are 2 vacancies on the Board of Adjustment, 1 vacancy on the Board of Drainage Appeals, which requires knowledge of hydrology, engineering, stormwater management, or related fields with no economic interest in the development or construction industries. That's one of them.
You have to have those requirements, but no economic interest in construction industry?
Locally, yes.
Interesting. That seems like somebody would be easy to find. Sorry, go ahead.
And you're right, it's not. And 2 vacancies on the Building Trades Board, which requires employment as an architect, engineer, general building contractor, or as a person licensed by the city in one of the trades regulated by the uniform codes adopted in Chapter 10 of the City Code. So in that case, you can have an economic interest and participate in that board. You can find out more information, apply online at stillwater.org/citizen boards. And if you have any questions about that, give us a call, or any of those positions, Board of Adjustment, Drainage Appeals, or the Building Trades Board, give us a call and we'll talk to you about it.
Those are really, really important volunteer positions. And you know they play a large role in how things are developed and what things happen around the city, and so it is really important for folks. I shouldn't be joking about the requirements because those are important roles, and we need folks to take a look, and if you're interested in helping out around the city, those would be excellent opportunities for you to do so. Thank you, Norman. Vice Mayor.
Yes. Residents are invited to witness a pending ceremony for the Stillwater Police Department's recent promotional process. The ceremony will take place here at 723 South Lewis Street in the Council Chambers on Thursday, April 21st at noon. The event will also be live streamed on AT&T Uverse Channel 99, Suddenlink Channel 14, and the City of Stillwater's YouTube channel. So congratulations to all the police officers who are going to be recognized and pinned for their promotions.
Yep. And those are great ceremonies, so
Yep.
if you can make it, please come out. Councilor Hawkins.
City Hall hours are changing on June 2nd, 2022. The building will be open Monday through Thursday from 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. and Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. City Hall will be closed on Friday afternoons and weekends. Many services can be completed online outside of regular business hours. Visit stillwater.org/online services to learn how you can pay utility bills and tickets from home.
Thank you, Councilor Hawkins. Councilor Jaloski.
Yes, rain barrels are an environmentally friendly way to save on your water bill and store water for future use. Visit stillwater.org/rainbarrel to learn how you can order one through the City of Stillwater. Mail orders must be placed by April 24th, and online orders need to be made by May 1st. Rain barrels must be picked up at the City of Stillwater Convenience Collection Center on May 7th between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m.
Thank you. I will remind you all that the city's Spring Household Hazardous Waste Collection event is this Saturday, April 23rd, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Convenience Collection Center. Residents can drop off household pollutants like oil-based paints, pesticides, herbicides, household cleaning products, and more free of charge. This event only happens twice a year, so don't miss your opportunity to get rid of those hazardous items that can't be tossed out with your regular trash. Visit stillwater.org/HHW, that's Household Hazardous Waste, for a full list of accepted items. All right, item 12 on the agenda is appointments. We have vacancies on the Library Board and the Airport Advisory Board. I would like to nominate Matt Upson and Robin Cornwell for the 2 vacancies on the Library Board.
Second.
We have a second to those nominations. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, Matt Upson and Robin Cornwell are appointed to the Stillwater Library Board. We appreciate your willingness to serve. And I will nominate Tim Harden and Phil Thomas to the 2 open seats on the Airport Advisory Board.
Second.
We have an appointment or motion and a second on that item. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, Tim Harden and Phil Thomas are appointed to the Airport Advisory Board. Thank you all for your willingness to serve in those committees.
Yep.
All right, at this time, I will recess the Stillwater City Council meeting before item 14. And I will call to order the April 18th, 2022 meeting of the Stillwater Utilities Authority. Consent docket. We have regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve consent docket.
Second.
A motion and a second. Please vote. The vote of 4-0, the consent docket is approved. First up on item 5A is approve a Boomer Lake Station transmission distribution line relocation project. Mr. Lauren Smith.
Good evening, trustees. Lauren Smith, Electric Utility Director. There we go. Let me bring up my slides here. The developer of the Boomer Lake Station redevelopment project has requested that the transmission and distribution lines in the area be relocated. Staff, working with the developer, has created a design that is agreeable to both parties. This is an overview of the site as it currently sits, and this is in your packet as well. All these black lines represent electric infrastructure in the area, the majority of it being overhead, and so you can see it's quite cluttered. What we're proposing to do now is to relocate the transmission and distribution lines on the periphery or the perimeter of the property. And as you can see, it really cleans up this whole area. And so the estimated cost for this relocation that will be done in-house for the entire project is $670,000. That includes staff, labor, materials, equipment, communication relocation, and directional boring cost. Staff is seeking approval of the Boomer Lake Station transmission, distribution, and relocation project at the cost listed above, and approval of a budget amendment that excludes staff, labor, and equipment cost. I have a motion here, but I will pause to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Lauren. Trustees? Lauren, I'm not a distribution engineer. that line is going to be moved out to the street? Will that be overhead?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep, so the idea is that this would be the transmission. Let's back up a minute. So currently, the transmission line runs down the east side of Boomer Lake Station Drive. It cuts back and around, or actually cuts back in front of this building. And the rest of this is distribution. And so the idea is that this would all be tucked back in between the properties here in the easement, as well as down the Washington Street transmission with underbuilt.
Yeah, I'm thinking along the lines of future development right there on that corner, whether those transmission lines are going to be the most attractive part of that development there.
Are you talking here where I'm circling?
Yeah, just along Washington there, because I would think that frontage.
So the property owner is either under contract or will own all that same property, and his desire was to push that out to Washington so he could clean up the views looking back to the lake. And so we went through several iterations to try to clean up this view out to the lake.
Okay.
And we, as I mentioned, we went back several times. Originally, we were just going to leave the transmission, move it to the west side of the drive, and then it was going to hit just about where the balcony on the second floor. I mean, there was a lot of thought put into how we could split that and get the view, and then it just morphed into this. And so it's my understanding he would much prefer it to be here than anywhere back to the east.
Okay.
I know we often ask this, but and I understand that it's cost prohibitive, but can you remind us how much more it is to bury?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically it's 2 to 3 times more expensive. Transmission, we don't recommend undergrounding 69,000 volt transmission. We do underground distribution a lot, but we try to avoid any primary trunk lines, 3-phase trunk lines, just because when they fault, it takes considerably much more time to make those repairs. And when you're talking about all the people downstream of that trunk line, it's typically a single phase of the line that we will underground, and we can kind of live with that during an outage. But when you start talking about a lot of customers out for a long time, and then the cost. So we're now estimating $2 to $2.5 million a mile just to do overhead transmissions. So you can imagine the cost of underground is just significantly more.
Why don't you guys just make it less expensive?
Yeah, I would love that. Trust me.
What is your recommended motion, Lauren?
Motion to approve the BLS transmission distribution line relocation project and the budget amendment allocating up to $255,000 from the rate stabilization fund for materials, communication relocation, and directional boring services.
Thank you. Trustees?
Motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 4 to 0, that request is approved. Thank you, Lauren. Back up for item B, which is approved budget amendments increasing the fiscal year 22 expenditure limit.
On June 7th, 2021, the trustees approved the annual expenditure request for wholesale purchase power for FY22 not to exceed $24,755,000. Current modeling indicates that the expenditures for purchase power to GRDA will exceed this amount by approximately $4,350,000. This is believed to be related to the unexpected natural gas cost increases over the last several months, which is projected to continue well into the future. In response to the increased cost of wholesale electric purchases, the SUA's PCA is responding to counterbalance the expenditures. Staff has prepared a budget amendment to increase the electric purchase power expenditure account by $4,350,000 with an offsetting revenue increase of $4,350,000. I have a motion here, but I would pause to answer any questions.
Trustees? When you say PCA?
Our production cost adjustment.
So that's built into our rate?
Yes.
That when the cost of generating electricity goes up, we're able to offset that with
yes, it's designed to do just that, to offset to energy any unexpected cost for energy from Grand River Dam Authority. It's passed on directly to our customers.
Okay. What's your recommendation?
Motion to approve budget amendments increasing the FY22 expenditure limit for purchase power from GRDA to a not-to-exceed amount of $32,674,176 and increasing electric sale revenue to $49,350,000.
Thank you. Trustees?
Motion to accept staff recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendation. Please vote. It's approved with a vote of 4-0. Item 5C is approved budget amendments increasing the fiscal year 2022 expenditure limit for natural gas transport.
The Stillwater Energy Center has been dispatched to operate significantly more than projected in FY22. Staff believes this is due to several transmission line outages causing congestion on the transmission system and in other areas of the state, as well as an increase in wind generation. Approximately 1 gigawatt of wind generation was recently brought online west of Oklahoma City in the Yukon area. This has created transmission congestion in our area and is raising the local marginal price for energy at those locations, making our LMP lower, which equates to the SEC running more. Natural gas prices have increased significantly as well. You may recall when we did this back in June, natural gas prices were about $2 a decatherm, and now they're about $5.50 to $6. On June 7th, the trustees authorized expenditures to enable not to exceed $1,075,000 for FY22. That amount was increased to $3,775,000 on October 18th. Staff has prepared budget amendments to increase the natural gas expenditure account with an offsetting revenue increase from Grand River Dam Authority for energy production. Both accounts are proposed to be increased by an additional $1.25 million. I have a motion here, but I will pause to answer any questions.
Trustees, any questions? What's your recommendation?
Motion to approve budget amendments increasing the expenditure limit for natural gas transport supply from Enable not to exceed an amount of $4,825,000 for FY22.
You mentioned a corresponding revenue adjustment. Is that built into the?
So we receive energy payments from Grand River Dam Authority that pay the gas, so it's counterbalancing kind of like the revenues for wholesale purchase power.
But do we need a budget amendment on the revenue side?
Let's see. Sorry. Oh. I think it's built in. Motion to approve the budget amendment. FY22. Let me see the amendment.
Yeah, actually, they're both in here.
I might not have caught that on the reading right here. Let's see. Motion to approve budget increase in expenditure limits for natural gas turbines. It was in the financing impact.
I mean, the packet has a budget amendment on the revenue side and one on the expenditure side, but the motion and the agenda only talks about expenditures. Well, I don't.
We've noticed for a budget amendment to increase the expenditure limit for the natural gas transport and supply for the not to exceed 4.8. If we need to approve a budget amendment for something additional, we'll need to put it on the next meeting.
We can put it on consent for the next meeting.
That's fine. I would just also note that the budget amounts in the request on the expenditure, the new budget amount is listed as $5,025,000 and not 4,825. The other one,
There's the reason behind that is there's $200,000 out of that is for other pieces of for like the ONG gas payments, so those don't always equal.
Okay.
Is it
Put on the
possible to
agenda.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's a not to exceed amount that we've noticed for action. Is it possible to pass this to the next, that would be my recommendation,
Yeah.
pass this to the next SUA meeting?
I would say we could, but it'll be tight, yeah.
That's my recommendation, to make sure we have better notice on the
Yeah.
agenda.
When is the next SUA meeting? Melissa, can we get there?
It'll be tight, let's put it that way, gas-wise, but
If we need a special, we
Can we
can
have a
throw up a special. Right.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
We'll not take any action on that item for tonight. All right. Thank you, Lauren. Item 5D is approved budget amendments totaling $1.4 million to move wastewater capital project from an undesignated funding source to a fund designated for wastewater expenditures. Melissa.
Good evening again, trustees. Melissa Reams, Deputy City Manager. This evening, we are asking you to move from the SUA operating fund, a project that had been funded many years ago through the SUA operating fund, and because we have changed the way we look at wastewater, it really is a wastewater project, we want to move it into that wastewater fund, and there is money there to fund the project as well. That helps get this into the right bucket, and it accounts for those costs when we're doing cost of service studies, which is so appropriate that we were talking about that this evening. So it should be a budget amendment to reduce the expenditure and the transfer in the operating fund, the SUA operating fund, and move all of those expenditures to the wastewater fund. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Trustees? Do you have a recommended motion?
Our recommendation or a recommended motion is for you to approve the attached budget amendment.
Trustees?
Motion to approve budget amendments as detailed in the financial impact funding source section of this report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the budget amendments. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, those budget amendments are approved. Item 5E is approved budget amendment returning remaining project balance to the respective fund balance of the Electric Rate Stabilization Fund. Melissa?
So this is a housekeeping item before you this evening. These two projects have reached their completion and they came in under budget. So we want to return, we want to return those budget dollars to the fund balance. The two projects in question are the electrical improvements to the community center, and if you'll remember, we did underground those electric connections over there. And then it's the Perkins Road, McElroy electric line relocate, and again, that's associated with our current ODOT project for Perkins Road between McElroy and Lakeview. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Trustees? What's your recommendation?
Recommendation for you to adopt the associated budget amendments, closing out these projects and returning the unused portion to the fund balance.
Thank you. Trustees?
Motion to approve the budget amendments is, am I on the right page, as detailed in the financial impact funding source section of this report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve those budget amendments. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that's approved. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you so much.
We have item F, which is to approve that same legal services agreement that we already approved in City Council. Do we need to do that again?
No, I just recommend to strike this item. It didn't need to be approved by SUA.
Thank you. That takes us to item 6 on the agenda, resolutions. Resolution number SUA 2022-4, which is a resolution amending the City of Stillwater commercial cardboard collection rate structure and terms and conditions of collection. I don't think we need Chris to explain this to us again. Sister resolution of the one we approved in the council. Is there a motion on the item?
Motion to adopt resolution number SUA 2022-4.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. I said we don't need any explanation from Chris, but trustees, if you would like to ask Chris any questions, certainly can. All right, well then let's vote on the motion. With a vote of 4-0, resolution SUA-2022-4 is adopted. And also the companion resolution from the City Council. This is resolution SUA-2022-5, a resolution reestablishing the annual rate increase to the water and wastewater rate structure for the Stillwater water utility services and the electric rate structures for the Stillwater electric utility, providing for subsequent annual rate increases. Is that it? That's the whole title? Questions, comments, or a motion on that resolution?
Motion to adopt resolution number SUA-2022-5.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that resolution is adopted. Any reports from the officers of the board? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the SUA. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, we're now adjourned. At this time, I will reconvene the Stillwater City Council meeting. We're at item 14 on the agenda. Is there a motion to enter executive session for the reasons requested by the city attorney?
Motion to enter executive session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to enter executive session. Please vote. The vote of 4-0 will now enter executive session. All right. Is there a motion to re-enter regular session? I don't know what the terminology is supposed to be for that. What do we reconvene in regular session?
Yep.
Is there a motion to reconvene?
Motion to reconvene.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to reconvene the Stillwater City Council meeting. Please vote.
I'm going to vote by roll
sorry.
call.
By roll call,
Mayor
please.
Joyce.
Yes.
Counselor Zanotti?
Yes.
Counselor Jalowski?
Yes.
Counselor Hawkins?
Yes.
With a vote of 4-0, we're now back in regular session. There's no recommended action from executive session?
No, sir.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn.
Okay.
Ms. Carnley, please call the roll.
Mayor Joyce?
Yes.
Counselor Zanotti?
Yes.
Counselor Jalowski?
Yes.
Counselor Hawkins?
Yes.
With a vote of 4-0, Stillwater City Council is now adjourned. Thank you.